Good afternoon, and welcome to another episode of CTLN Opinion Plus. As you know, this is a space for the concerns and issues of the Latino community. This week we are talking about agriculture, and we are joined by Jaime Smith, the Bureau Director of Agriculture Development and Resource Confirmation. Thank you for joining us, Jaime. How are you?
I'm very good. Thank you for having me.
This is actually a topic that I've been wanting to talk about because we don't talk about agriculture in our community a lot. So thank you for doing this.
Absolutely.
And as you know, we are living through a pandemic. How has COVID-19 affected the agriculture industry in Connecticut, and how have they adjusted?
Well, the ag industry, we really need to look at it from two different angles. You have the farmers who sell direct to the consumer, which is a retail sales transaction. And then you have farmers who sell wholesale. So farmers that sell to grocery chains, to restaurants, to schools and institutions. And while the farmers on the retail side thrive in comparison to those on the wholesale side, whose markets were really slamming their door shut as we went through the stay home, stay safe orders, and restaurants were closed or their capacity was extremely limited in comparison to what it normally was, those farmers really had to be creative in how they found a market for their products. So we saw shell fishermen partnering with local breweries and wineries to sell their shellfish there in a sort of a farmer's market style approach. And then you had the folks with the retail side who had the previously established farm stores that saw a great boom in business as we heard that big grocery chains and meat supplies were dwindling due to closures of large commercial slaughterhouse facilities out west.
And how was there a financial loss in the farm industry in Connecticut due to the pandemic?
On the wholesale side, many farmers would say that they took a hit. But I am proud to say that farmers know how to work with challenges, and there were a lot of them in 2020. There were invasive pests, there was a drought, in addition to the pandemic, and they really found a way to pivot through additional partnerships. Some of the folks that really make me smile when I think about how they really worked to overcome some of their challenges so that they could stay in business were our shell fishermen down on the coast. So we have a very vibrant aquaculture and industry in Connecticut. Shellfish, including oysters and clams, are very prevalent. We harvest them in the Long Island Sound, and they're the ones who really probably saw one of the biggest hits going. So our plant industry, our nursery greenhouse industry, the pandemic came right at Mother's Day, right around Easter time, which is some of their biggest springtime sales take place then. And collectively, they all work together. The agency was really instrumental in ensuring that agriculture, including nursery and greenhouses, were deemed an essential business and could remain open during the pandemic. And I know that was very well received, especially by the greenhouse industry.
You mentioned farmers markets. Do you guys have any way that we can find our local farm or farmers market?
Yeah. So we do have a partnership with the Connecticut Northeast Organic Farming Association. And together we have built out a resource called ctgrownmap.com, where folks can go online and find farmers markets and farm stores around Connecticut where they can buy local farm products.
You also mentioned oysters, and I'm kind of thinking, wow, I'd love to see the brewery or vineyard that paired the oysters with the
yeah. It was a really, our shellfish industry is really wholesale driven, right? Their markets are New York and Boston, and their restaurants. And so for a lot of those doors to be closed, they really had to be creative. And so they brought product to these breweries and these wineries. Everyone's outdoors. And so they're able to purchase fresh oysters in addition to sitting and drinking a glass of Connecticut wine or Connecticut beer.
Mm-hmm. You guys also have the City Grown program, which targets local and regional markets. But there are still several neighborhoods and communities in Connecticut that might not have a grocery store like a farmer's market. How is the Department of Agriculture addressing these hard to reach communities that desperately need produce, fresh produce?
Yeah, so we're really trying to take a look at where our farmers markets exist and
Mhm.
in what neighborhoods. We run a couple different programs. One of note is the Farmers Market Nutrition Program, which specifically provides checks for fresh fruits and vegetables for women, infant, and children enrolled in this program. And for areas where there may not be a farmer's market, we try very hard to work with a farmer to have a pop-up farm stand or to have a farmer in the nearby area accessible so that folks could go and utilize their checks there. We have had conversations with smaller grocers to try and incorporate Connecticut grown farm products into their store, realizing that the small corner markets, the bodegas, are where folks are shopping. And how can we get our fresh Connecticut farm products into those locations?
Yeah, I think that's really good to know. I didn't know that there was assistance to buying produce.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't seem to keep mine alive, so that's good to know.
We do a lot of work, and we're really trying to expand our space in the urban gardening area and community farms area. So, maybe that's a good way to go too.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Um, I guess I guess in my idea of America, one of the pillars of America is agriculture. It's constantly mentioned in every election, and no matter where you're at, agriculture is mentioned because it was the start of industry in America, I think. What does a new executive branch mean for the agricultural industry going forward?
So, the Biden administration recently announced a Rescue Act. And in that act, there was a lot that talked about engaging the local economy and emergency feeding. And we're really excited about that. The previous administration issued through the USDA, the Farmers to Family Food Box program. And it's wonderful. The amount of food that we have moved through that program is truly impressive. And it's going to people who genuinely need it during this pandemic. The missing piece, however, is that engagement of the local producer. And so we're pretty hopeful about what is being proposed in an effort to not only engage our local farmers, but our local restaurants, our local grocers, because there's a lot of potential and a lot of need in just coming back to the local economy to then therefore feed people in Connecticut too. So we're positive and optimistic about it. That's for sure.
And how important is conservation and agriculture in Connecticut? I guess my idea of Connecticut, and the few times that I've been there, it just looks so green to me. But how important is it, and how do we make, I guess, conservation available and the information available to everybody?
So within the agency, we have the Farmland Preservation Program, and this program purchases the development rights
Mhm.
so that the land would stay in farmland in perpetuity. Connecticut has one of the highest rates of farmland losses in the country, and so this program is exceptionally important. In 2020, we preserved 13 farms for 1,115 acres of farmland. This is not the highest year we've had, but it was certainly more than actually 2019. So we're pretty excited about that.
Mhm.
This allows the land to stay in active farmland, which, as you know, not only is good for food production, but it's good for the climate as well. When we talk about climate change and how ag can come into play, farmland preservation is a really important source. We have our program. We also do a lot in partnership with the Connecticut Farmland Trust and other land trusts around the state to make this happen. I think it's a very or very unfamiliar topic. It's not certainly very well advertised, but it does a lot of good. So.
Whenever I think of farms and agriculture, I think about, those families that go and they pick the apples and those that go and get the cider and the pies from the local bakery on the farm.
Mhm.
Is agriculture still this family business that
It
I
really is. Yeah, it really is. I know that when folks think of farming out west, they think of these massive corporations. But in Connecticut, it is so very much a family-driven operation. We have many farms that are what we call century farms. They've been around for centuries. And then we also have farms that are 7, 8 generations deep. And so the idea of folks taking their family out to pick apples or pumpkins, even to go sit on a lawn and have a glass of wine. Um, those are all family businesses, very, very true, genuine family businesses. And some of them might have very large operations. I can think of quite a few close to the New York State area, but they are run by a family. So
that's it's kind of endearing, isn't it? And
I think it really keeps the character of agriculture alive
yeah,
in Connecticut. A lot of folks think of Connecticut of, that's the state I drive through to get to New York City or to Boston, right? But Connecticut has 5,500 farms, 50% of which are owned by women, and it's family businesses. So it's really wonderful to know not only are you supporting a very small, intimate industry when you purchase direct from the farmer, but you're supporting a family. There is no question about that. So
I have one more question, and I think this is a question that I want to know and that everyone else wants to know, but it's not too important. But what produce is in season right now, and what can we buy to support our local farmer and will have a lot of flavor? Because I don't think strawberries taste good all year long. You
no,
know?
they don't. No, they sure don't. I would say right now, root vegetables are by far the most prevalent thing. But there's a lot of what we acknowledge as season extension. You have folks growing in greenhouses and hoop houses. So you can have the fresh greens and make a salad. Depending on the size and the diversity of the operation, it can go from greens to cucumbers to tomatoes. The technology that exists within agriculture is really impressive. A lot of folks think of it as just field grown, corn, but there is so much more to it than that. And the technology and the resources through hoop houses and greenhouses and fans and hydroponic production, and it really keeps a pretty viable volume of food available. So as I mentioned, eggs are always in season. There's plenty of meat out there, dairy products. We have actually a great dairy industry and some really wonderful local producers. So I am always a big advocate for ice cream and cheese, but certainly root vegetables are available as well.
Well, thank you for joining us. This has been informative, and I guess on a day like today and a week like this week, it's it's good to know that this, I guess, pocket of America that I always picture to be so endearing is remaining so.
It is. Today's a great day to go visit a Connecticut winery or brewery and celebrate the day that is today, for sure.
Yeah. And this week, if you can't make this week, I'm sure anybody can make a drive to a local Connecticut brewery or winery or farm to support Connecticut. So thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for having me.
That's all the time we have for today. Tune in next week for another episode. Follow us on Twitter at CT Latino News and Instagram at CT_Latino News. That was Jaime Smith with the Department of Agriculture and Conservation. I'm Savani Campos with CTLN Opinion Plus. See you next time.